This vibrant and attractive town is called Valladolid. It is situated on the interior of the Yucatán Peninsula, about halfway between Mérida and Cancún. My goal here is to let you see what this place is all about. I took the Tren Maya from Mérida very early this morning. I will catch another train back this afternoon. That means just one day, several hours to explore and discover. Let's see how well I can do.
Valladolid was founded in 1543, but it technically didn't become a city until nearly 300 years later in 1823. The architectural beauty of its colonial buildings has helped it gain recognition as a pueblo mágico. That happened in 2012. With a population of nearly 60,000, this city is the third largest in the state of Yucatán. It is described as a quiet and peaceful place. That is exactly what I discovered during my short time in the town. I made this a day trip, but ideally, this is a location where you would spend at least one night and maybe two. Still, I attempted to see as much as possible to provide you a fair look at what it contains. I will present Valladolid to you in the order in which I experienced it. Fresh from the train, I headed straight for the municipal market. Travel enough, and you'll find that the main market in town is not only a superb spot to get a feel for the community, but it's best to get there early. The market here opens every day at 5 a.m., so it had already been operating for hours by the time I arrived. It was early enough that all the vendors were still fully involved. This provided all the usual products, especially fruits and vegetables. Another section, which I'm not usually drawn to, made an impact here. This spot featured so many butchers.
In this part of the market, it is all about the meat. There's everything from beef to pork to chicken to chicharrones. If you want the freshest stuff in town, this is where you come.
I counted 10 rows of stalls which cut up and sold all different varieties of meat. Suffice to say, this must be a town full of carnivores. The listed closing time of the market is 4 p.m., but it's likely that many vendors will end their day prior to then. The market is to the east of the center of town, and this colorful church is a couple of blocks to the south of that. This is Iglesia de Santa Ana. There's a gate with 3 arches in front. The church is fairly simple in design, with limited entrances and only one window. Many say it looks like a fortress. The Alamo in Texas is bigger, but the styles are similar. I found this church to be interesting because it was not built for the Spanish colonizers who controlled the town at the time.
Construction here began in the 16th century. In the early days, the congregation was almost exclusively Maya Indians. All of the rites, except for Mass, were given in the Mayan language.
I first approached a gate at the side of the building that was locked and thought I wouldn't be able to gain access. Fortunately, the front was open. Adjacent to the church is Parque de Santa Ana. A Mayan leader was executed here in the mid-19th century. That inspired decades of conflict. There is also a monument to the boy heroes. 6 cadets, as young as 10, from a military academy in Mexico City refused to retreat under American attack and died in that battle. The park has a much more peaceful feel today. It's seldom that one of an area's most incredible natural elements is right in the middle of town. That's the case here, however. This is Cenote Zaci. That is a Mayan word meaning white hawk. It's a large semi-open cenote that has a diameter of 45 meters. Vegetation clings to the walls, and the placid, gloriously blue water is deep, 40 meters or 130 feet.
If on your list you have going to a charming small town and visiting a cenote, you can knock both out right in this location. This cenote is only a couple of blocks from the main square of the town.
Even well before noon, there were many people enjoying the cenote. There are several platforms from which to jump into the water, and this is large enough that it probably never seems crowded. Life jackets are required, as is the case in many cenotes. This was the second of these features that I had visited, but I didn't give myself time to take a dip. A little closer to the center of town is this open space. It is called Parque Los Héroes. With several monuments and plaques, this reflects Valladolid's place in history. That extends from the 1847 Mayan uprising I mentioned earlier, which was called the Caste War, to being the place where the initial spark was ignited for the Mexican Revolution in 1910. The park is an extension of Museo San Roque. This small space was a great site for learning more of the town's history. It includes everything from pre-colonial artifacts, documents related to the formation of the city, and some intriguing artwork. This was once the hospital, then it became a chapel. It has been a museum since 1985. There is no admission charged to enter. I took a break for coffee in a cafe just to the west of the main square. This is called Ava Art and Cafe. I grabbed a seasonal drink and sat down to enjoy the atmosphere.
Here it's not just about the coffee drink. I'm having my pumpkin spice latte with a little extra. This is also an art gallery. There are pieces here in the room where you sit and have your coffee, and another room in the back that looks really special.
The artwork created extra value on top of the drink. I spent 10 minutes or so admiring the pieces that filled the back room. It was a fantastic way to relax for a few moments while also being exposed to a bit of the local culture. Eventually, it was time for me to explore the very heart of the town. This is the main square, known as Francisco Canton Rosado Park. It is a leafy green space with an ample amount of shade. It's easy to find a comfortable place to sit. There are even some you and me or confidant chairs situated here. At the center is a mestiza fountain depicting a Mayan woman with a water jug. Each central square in a Mexican town is a major part of its identity. Sometimes you are fortunate to be in the right place at the perfect time. That happened for me in this square. I was in place for a procession as the streets of the center were blocked off and people, mostly in white, moved through carrying banners and flags. It was religious in nature and was accompanied by drums and trumpet. It ended at the door of the main church in town, and once everyone was assembled, the priest blessed those who had marched as they entered. The church here is the Iglesia de San Servacio. An original structure was built here using the stones from a nearby Mayan pyramid that had been dismantled. That was in 1545. This is not that original structure. What is seen today rose in the early 18th century. A sordid occurrence involving two mayors, a woman, and a double murder was deemed so profane by the bishop that the church was demolished, and this was erected in its place. The Spanish colonial architecture, its two bell towers, and a grand interior give no hint of the scandal which led to its creation. To the side of the square is the City Hall of Valladolid. This white structure with numerous arches was built in the early days of the settlement after the Spanish arrived. Here too, some of the stones from the Mayan pyramid were used in the construction. Next to that administrative building is this location, which contains the Casa de la Cultura. This is that same kind of Spanish colonial architecture, only in yellow this time. The center has historic photos and a piece or two of art. I was drawn mainly, however, to the inner courtyard. That's where this building shone most brightly. The columns and arches over its two floors made this a most charming place to spend a few moments. Also just off of the square was this space. It was simply a place to sit and have food that had been purchased from one of the stands. I was attracted to its appearance. Less than a block from the central square is a spot to learn all about chocolate. This is the Choco Story Museum. It tells a broad story of chocolate production, but zeroes in on the Mayan civilization and its connection to cacao. The Mayan used what they consider to be a gift from the gods in rituals and as currency. Their cultivation techniques and reverence for the plant has shaped the way the modern world relates to chocolate. The museum contains 12 rooms with narration in a variety of languages. I stumbled across this place beside the square and found local artisans at work. It's the Regional Handcraft Center. There were a number of shops where goods could be purchased. In a couple of instances, it was possible to see women creating some of the items. The rich embroidery of clothing was most prominent in this location. Leaving the center and walking to the southwest, I experienced what is considered to be the most picturesque and lively street in the town. This is the Calzada de los Frailes. That can be translated as the Street of the Friars. It's appropriate since this avenue was built by Franciscan friars to connect Valladolid to a Mayan village.
When you get out of the center, this is one of the streets that you want to hit. There are so many bars and restaurants and shops, and the look of this place is simply amazing.
With all sorts of higher-end establishments along the way, this thoroughfare has a much different feel than the rest of the city. I traveled the route to get to this place. It's the Convent of San Bernardino. There is so much to like about this fortress-like edifice.
To save time, I almost didn't come in here, but then I realized it was only 40 pesos, which is less than $3 American, and I had a few moments. So I ducked inside, and I'm so glad that I did. This place is spectacular.
To me, this was the highlight of the town. Construction began in 1552 and was completed in 1560. Built by the Franciscan friars, it was designed to convert indigenous people to Catholicism. The complex also included a school and a hospital. Today, this remains a place of worship and is also a site for cultural and artistic gatherings. I could have roamed around the grounds for an hour or more, but that was time that I didn't have. Still, I appreciated the opportunity to discover a few of its many features. If you ever make it to Valladolid, make visiting the convent a priority. The park in front of the convent is where the Valladolid letters are situated. Come here to get that iconic social media post. On the way back to the center, I dropped into this vegan restaurant. I needed just a little something to get me through the rest of the day. My choice was a smoothie.
I had every intention of eating lunch while I was in town, but I just ran out of time. I even knew what I was going to order. This, however, is going to be a meal replacement. It's a smoothie and it's mango based, so you know I'm happy.
It was a nice drink in a beautiful setting. I eventually did get the dish that I was going to have for lunch. This is longaniza de Valladolid. It is a handmade smoked sausage that originated in the city. Initially, it was made with deer meat, but now it is usually pork. I got mine at a restaurant in Mérida. On each end of my day in the town, there was a ride on Tren Maya. It's a new train that serves the Yucatán Peninsula with stops all over, from Cancún to Chichen Itza to Mérida, and of course, Valladolid. This is designed to open up new destinations to tourists, but it is not without controversy. Critics point to its environmental impact, the disruption of indigenous communities, and pollution concerns.
I'll leave it to others to weigh in on the controversy. What I will say is that the trains are modern and clean. They have been very efficient, and it's an extremely smooth ride.
For me, the trip between Mérida and Valladolid was just about 2 hours each way.
I did my best, but I probably gave you no more than just the usual highlights. As many sites as were included here, I promise there are 4 or 5 times as many that remain unseen. Valladolid simply has too much to see in just a few hours. Hopefully though, this was enough to convince you to drop by the town if you ever find yourself in this area. I'll have plenty more to come from here on the Yucatán Peninsula in the coming weeks. Come back to Old, Alone, and Far From Home to see it all.